Time now for Fantasy Football Today for CBS Local. I'm Jamie Eisenberg. That's Dave Richard. That's Heath Cummings. We have the starts and sits you need for week number 8 to help you dominate your fantasy leagues. Let's get right to it with the start of the week for this matchup. Vikings taking on the Dallas Cowboys Sunday night. Love Kirk Cousins in this game. I think he's going to have another unbelievable performance for a guy that scored 26 or more fantasy points in 4 of 6 games this year. He's averaging over 24 fantasy points on the season. You know Mr. Unlimited is Russell Wilson. What about Mr. Underrated for Kirk Cousins? A very good fantasy quarterback. This is the highest implied point total of the week between Minnesota and Dallas. We should see a shootout between Dak Prescott and Kirk Cousins. As you see here, we like him as a top 10 fantasy quarterback for this week. Other starts for me include a couple of running backs, Damian Harris and Elijah Mitchell. I think Antonio Gibson has a good game against the Broncos because the Broncos stink. Marvin Jones against the Seahawks, and Chase Claypool will bounce back after a disappointing week 6. Coming off the bye, good matchup for him against the Cleveland Browns. Dave, your starts include some interesting players here. Matt Ryan's in a good spot. Like the setup there for him. I want to talk about Michael Pittman, though, because we're going to see if T.Y. Hilton's able to play. Does it matter for you if Hilton's in or if Hilton's out, how that will impact Pittman against Titans?
It does matter a little bit. If T.Y. Hilton plays, I'll be less excited about Michael Pittman, but facts are facts. He's given you at least 11 PPR points in 5 of his last 6 games. Those came without T.Y. Hilton. I still think he will get a lot of targets, even if T.Y. Hilton plays. So I like him no matter what, and I like the matchup against Tennessee. They've allowed 4 touchdowns to wide receivers in their last 5 games.
Keith, let's take a look at your starts here, and it might be a record. We got to week 8, and we finally have a Jets player as a start, but Michael Carter's in a good spot for you.
Loved the fact that he was so involved in the passing game with Mike White at quarterback. We're going to see Mike White for at least one more week. 40% of his passes went to running backs. This is a tough defense to run on, but he'll get 10, 12 carries for 40 yards, going to catch another 4 or 5 passes for 40 yards. Hopefully he somehow gets into the end zone.
You're giving him 4 yards per carry. That might be another record for a Jets running back as well. Let's stick with you, Heath, and go to the sits here. And you just do not like Denver right now. No love for Melvin Gordon or Javonte Williams or Jerry Jeudy.
It's 2 totally different things. First off, the Washington football team defensively has been pretty good against the run. Alvin Kamara, the only running back to run for even 70 yards against this defense. We know Gordon and Williams are going to split things up pretty much evenly, so I don't want to start them. With Jeudy, it's not a thing about him. The defense is obviously terrible in the secondary for Washington. It's just I'm a little bit worried about a little bit of rust. I'd like to see it 1 week before I start.
All right, so avoid the Broncos according to Heath Cummings. And for Dave, you're avoiding T. Higgins. So another record, somebody sitting against the Jets defense.
You know, he had 15 targets last week, Jamie, but he didn't do a lot with them, and that was really disappointing. The Jets have allowed 3 touchdowns to wide receivers all year. Are they good against the pass? No, teams just don't throw a lot against them. They're going to run the ball. This is a great week for Joe Mixon, not so much for T. Higgins.
All right, so we'll see if Higgins gets another allotment of targets like we saw last week. A lot of that was Joe Burrow's fault, though, not connecting with him. It was a rare disappointment for Burrow in that game because he was so great with Jamar Chase and C.J. Uzomah. For me, I'd like to avoid all the Dolphins. As you see here, Myles Gaskin and Jalen Waddle, they're taking on the Bills. The Bills' defense has been awesome, number 1 against opposing wide receivers. And aside from facing Derrick Henry, they've been great against opposing running backs. So Gaskin's in a good spot without Malcolm Brown there. Waddle's in a good spot depending on who's healthy for the Dolphins receivers. But the matchup stinks, so I would like to stay away from Jalen Waddle and Myles Gaskin. Potentially Mike Gesicki, but definitely Tua Tagovailoa. Going to be a big weekend for the Bills. All right, hopefully it's a big weekend for your fantasy rosters as well. Don't forget to check out our Fantasy Football Today podcast, wherever podcasts are available. And, of course, check us out, CBS Sports HQ, Monday through Friday, noon Eastern, Sunday, 10 a.m. Eastern. We help you dominate your fantasy leagues.